Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Monday. Thank you for joining me. And yes, it is me. And I got a haircut this weekend, a long overdue haircut. The guy almost cut me bald, and I'm like, is this my hair going to grow back? It will. All right. Anyway, we have a fantastic show that I need to get into as quickly as possible because there's a lot we want to do. Bucky Brooks is going to join us in about 30, 40 minutes after I open up the show. Steve Kerr will join us at the back end of the show as we expand the topics. But we're going to spend a lot of time this morning talking about the controversy of the day, the controversy that we knew was coming, the controversy that I predicted a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, when I said there's a chance the NFL coaching cycle could produce an offer as it relates to black head coaches, and we have gone 0 for 10. And so the race idolaters and the mainstream media are already in the process of melting down, and the NFL is racist again. And just in time for, what's his name, Alexi Preddy and Renee Good and the ICE protest, we got this whole conversation stirred up. The NFL, the Super Bowl is coming, and we're going to add on Monday, today, Roger Goodell will have his press conference, and Jim Trotter, I don't think, will be there, the NFL Network reporter, but someone's going to pick up the flag and ask Roger Goodell how disappointed he is that 10 coaching openings came up in the NFL, and none of them were filled by black men, and therefore the NFL is racist. We're going to get into that full steam ahead in a way that no one else in the media has the audacity, I think is part of the word, the freedom to do it, maybe even the knowledge to do it, to talk about this issue in a more holistic way, in a more comprehensive way than just, man, these NFL owners that pay all these black players all this money, man, they're just racist. And they got this special thing of racism when it comes to the head coach and when it comes to the quarterback's coach and when it comes to offensive coordinator. They just let their racism just take over, and they're just not comfortable doing this. And we're not looking at any alternative theories. We're not looking at the truth. I'm going to get into it, discuss it today. Bucky Brooks, I would expect to give me a little bit of pushback or certainly give me his insight. We'll see what Steve Kerr has to say about it as well. But there's other things going on in the sports world we will address too. First thing I need you to do, if you're listening over Apple, is hit that 5-star rating. Helps us fight the algorithm, helps us popularize the show and get this kind of objective thinking out to more people and more of the mainstream. So if you're listening over Apple, give us that 5-star review. If you're watching over YouTube or just a supporter of the show, go to fearlessmission.com and become a subscriber to everything we're doing here at Blaze TV. This is the only platform, this one here, run by me in partnership with the Blaze, where you can get these types of honest conversations about what's going on in the sports world, what's going on in American culture. You can only get it here, and we can only do it if you're willing to support us. Become a subscriber. This is important. You don't have to be on board with the complete political thing. I want you to still be able to have sex with your wife without her kicking you out because she thinks you're a Republican or she thinks you don't hate Donald Trump enough. This isn't about the politics. You don't have to jump on board with the politics. Look, I'm not someone I don't like the Democrats or the Republicans, really. I like Trump. You know, he's done some things that I really, really like. But for those of you that, your sex life is dependent upon pretending that you're a Democrat, throwing out your Christian values, you can still support this show. We won't tell your wife. We won't tell your girlfriend. We won't tell your boss or whomever because you still have a thirst for truth, and we're going to give it to you here on this show. Please become a subscriber. Use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. Get $20 off. The other thing you can do, this is really, really important. You can honor God, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, by supporting Preborn. One of our primary supporters here, if not our primary supporter here, what we do. Preborn is just as bold as we are on this show. Preborn supports the worldview the biblical worldview, that life begins at conception. They provide expectant mothers who are considering abortion. They provide that mother an ultrasound. They introduce the baby's heartbeat, an image of that baby in the womb. Now that mother realizes, hey, that's not a clump of cells. That's not a fetus. That's a baby. That's God's greatest gift developing inside my womb. And she is now twice as likely to choose life. And that's where preborn steps up, and provides that woman and child support for up to 2 years. They can do that because guys and girls like me, we step up and we support and we donate to preborn. Each ultrasound is $28. 5 ultrasounds is $140. Whatever your best gift is, please give it to preborn. Our money isn't wasted. It actually saves babies' lives. It pays for the $28 ultrasound. That's the first step in saving that baby's life. If you want to feel good about yourself, but more importantly, if you want to make God feel good about you in that moment, please support preborn. There's 2 ways to give. Pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, the keyword baby. Or give the way that I prefer to give, preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. All right, let's get into today's show, which I am titling a play off the movie 12 Years a Slave. This NFL movie, is called 100 Years a Victim. That's our brand. And I'm not sure why we have the 12 years it says 100 years a victim. But anyway, this has been going on for 100 years. This whole victimhood mentality that we have here in America among black men. This mentality that our brand, our identity is through victimhood. And what you're about to witness is everybody melts down over social media. Everybody melts down on ESPN and Fox Sports and everywhere, in the New York Times, The Athletic, Bleacher Report. Everywhere you turn, you're going to hear black men and liberal white men and liberal white women and black women. You're going to hear them talking about, the victimhood of black men and just how enslaved we are and how we can't get a job because it's racism and we're just victims of this and victims of that. And as long as our brand is victimhood, as long as our identity is victimhood, it's nearly impossible for a group of people that see themselves as victims. Those people don't make good leaders. Period. End of story. You cannot be a leader while being a victim. Those two things are antithetical. There is no leadership in victimhood. And if you're paying attention, or even if you're not paying attention, if you're just awake and your heart is pounding, you're breathing air, you know that American black people have bought into the victim mentality. And it is their central identity. You could, as a test, you could walk up to the typical black person in America, and particularly a black Christian in America, and you could walk up to them and say, hey man, I think Jesus Christ wasn't your Lord and Savior, isn't our Lord and Savior. I think he's a myth and I think he's a fraud. And here's the reaction you would get from most black Christians. Man, get away from me with that mess. And then they'd walk away. But if you went up to them and said, hey man, I don't think you're a victim. I don't think black people's history in America is that they are victims. Now you got a fight on your hands. Now you got an argument on your hands. Now you got a person that will bend over backwards to run around and tell everybody this person is racist and they shouldn't be employed anywhere. They shouldn't be put in a position of leadership and respect. They shouldn't receive promotions. We must run around and brand this person. I must tell the world, this person's racist. They've denied my victimhood. That's the reaction. Now you go up to them and say anything you want negative about Jesus Christ. Man, get on here away from that mess. And they'll keep it moving. Tell them they're not a victim. Tell them that black people are not a victim. Tell them that the Bible says and makes clear that victimhood cannot exist in Christianity. And I was, well, man, that doesn't apply to me. Of course I'm a victim. Don't you know what happened to Kunta Kinte and Kizzy and Roots? Don't you know what happened to my great ancestors? Don't you know all that they experienced? Don't you understand the residual impact of all that racism they faced during slavery, that it is still with us here today? Don't you know that my SAT score is 100 points lower than what it would be if it hadn't been for racism? Don't you know I would have gotten that promotion on the job if it hadn't been for racism? Because that is what this whole thing is about. The reason you will have black media members and black athletes and black commentators everywhere sitting back comfortably with a smug look on their face and telling the whole NFL is racist and they just don't want black head coaches. What they're really saying is, I'm a victim of racism in my career. That's why I'm going to scream and yell that racism exists in the National Football League and it prevents people from ascending to the top leadership position, head coach in football, because that's a way for me to say, you know why I didn't get the job I wanted at the New York Times or at ESPN or at the Kansas City Star or wherever you work, the Dallas Morning News, whatever radio station, whatever TV network you work at. The reason why I'm not the ultimate boss, the reason why I'm not the lead anchor, the reason I'm not the lead editor, it's racism. White people are inherently racist and they're holding black people back. That's just a fact. And I will fight and die and argue and cuss and scream and yell and throw tantrums about it. That is the actual Great Commission of the secular left, of the black Christian class. The Great Commission is to let everybody know I'm a victim and that black people are victims on this planet. That's the Great Commission. That's the word that they want the entire world to bow down to and accept. And so I'm going to, and some of these people that I may mention today are people that I know, people that I respect, people that I had positive relationships with at some point, but I just have to keep it real. And so I'm going to start by reading the article in The Athletic, and it's written by Jerry Brewer, someone I've known for a long time, someone that I've had a lot of respect for throughout his career. But here's the article that Jerry Brewer wrote for The Athletic. It's commentary. Jerry used to work at the Washington Post. He used to work in the Pacific Northwest, maybe at the Seattle Times. I can't remember, but I've known Jerry for a long time. The headline of the article is, the NFL hired 0 black head coaches. That tells you everything. That can't be the truth. There is no problem that has a very simple source or solution or answer to. The NFL hired 0 black head coaches. That tells you everything. It tells you everything about what? The NFL? That tells you everything about how racist things are. Let's read the article, the commentary. It's never good when NFL owners become the story of the coaching carousel, yet they were unavoidable during this cycle, flashing their eccentricities and wealth-skewed logic, running their mega-billion-dollar sports toys like children crashing remote-control cars into a wall. They operate these franchises with the befuddling sophistication of a little family-owned convenience store. Then, when a precious few dare to exit their cloistered compounds and step in front of a microphone, they provide cringeworthy entertainment. In Buffalo, watch Terry Pegula insert those puppies, socks, loafers, and everything, into his mouth. In Cleveland, see Jimmy Haslam scare off quality candidates and then poo-poo fresh faces brave enough to want to work for him. As the camera pans across the league, wince and cover your eyes. It was alarming enough that for the second time in 4 years, the NFL had 10 head coaching vacancies to begin this offseason. However, the really disturbing part is what teams have done with these opportunities to reset. The results are in. 9 of those jobs have been filled. The last one is all but closed. The Las Vegas Raiders are expected to finalize a deal with Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak after the Super Bowl. Aside from the New York Giants capitalizing on John Harbaugh's sudden availability, the most memorable parts of this period will be owners behaving like amateurs in public and then defaulting to their callow and superficial hiring practices. Jerry's saying a lot without providing a lot of substance so far, but I'm going to continue to read in hopes that at some point Jerry gets to substance, and I say this respectfully. I like Jerry. I sincerely do, but this piece is not off to a good start. Most of these franchises didn't reset. Their owners reverted to predictable dysfunction. The NFL is trapped in this loop because people with ultimate authority have little desire to evolve. Over and over again, the owners opt for organizational stagnation and attempt to disguise it as prudence. That's how you end up with the damning statistic that will define this carousel, 0 for 10. In a league that still recites diversity statements and upholds Rooney Rule interview requirements, no black head coaches were hired. 0. About 1/3 of the NFL was looking for new leaders. Roughly 70% of the players are African American, but 0. Robert Salah, who is Lebanese American, was the only minority coach deemed worthy of an opportunity. With record-tying 10 openings, NFL hires 0 black head coaches. Oh, that's not his story. That's a caption. I'm sorry. This hiring cycle became a monochrome echo of decades past, not just in race, but also in imagination. It's encouraging to see 6 first-time head coaches in the class of 2026. 5 of them are under 50. 3 are under 40. On the other hand, the new Buffalo Bills coach, Joe Brady, is the only one whose pedigree doesn't trace back to one of these 3 coaches: Harbaugh, Kyle Shanahan, and Sean McVay. On Sundays, the NFL markets innovation. The best teams boast clever schemes and reimagined methods of coaching and motivating players. And on Mondays, owners of franchises desperate to catch up continue to prize familiarity, mistaking their comfort for confidence, trusting that stubborn repetition will somehow produce stability. In a nation backing away from previous diversity commitments, there is little societal pressure for NFL owners to be better. The problem isn't confined to minority coaches being passed over. It's much bigger. It's about an industry unwilling to challenge its own narrow vision of leadership, what it looks and sounds like, who sets the standard, and who gets otherized. Without sustained pressure, NFL teams are as lax as ever in honoring even their own stated intentions. I'm not one to declare any hire a success or failure before the coach even addresses his entire squad. Instead, the focus should be on the process that led to each selection and whether the new person fits the franchise's ethos, assuming it's not a shiftless organization. Viewing the choices this way, it's easy to identify which teams are on task and which are flailing. The Giants, who needed credibility Here's my problem so far, and hopefully I'll make it through the entire article. But I said this at the outset. There's another guy, Mike Jones, at The Athletic that tweeted out this 0 for 10 deal and just, started ranting and just never making the argument, hey, here's the coaches that got overlooked. There were these brilliant black candidates, and let me tell you why they should have been hired. And so far, we're probably 50, 60% through Jerry Brewer's article, and we're not arguing for something. We're just stringing together a group of, a laundry list of opinions and clever wording that says, hey, these guys are a bunch of idiots. These billionaires, these titans of industry, they are a group of idiots that don't know how to run their most prized possession. And I don't understand. I don't know how you disprove that argument, because does everybody have to win the Super Bowl every year? Every team, there's 32 teams. None of them are successful unless they all win the Super Bowl every year. They all have to make the playoffs every year. There can be no teams that lose under this scenario because it's nothing but dysfunction. You've got the most profitable league in the history of American sports. You've got franchises that are doubling and tripling in value over the course of 3 to 5 to 10 years. But this is a group of idiots who don't know what they're doing. And Jerry Brewer, sitting at The Athletic, he knows better than the billion. And look, they can all be questioned. I've questioned the billionaire class constantly. Just last week, let me refresh your memory. Oh, Jason won't attack these guys. He's in bed with these owners. He's afraid of them. Go ask Robert Kraft if I'm afraid of him. Go ask anybody. Last week, when this Hall of Fame deal went down with Bill Belichick, there's only been one person that aggressively went at Robert Kraft. One person. So it's not fear. It's not reluctance. It's not, oh, he never attacks these billionaires. Yes, I do. There's a reason why they hate me. But I just don't co-sign any and everything. And these ad hominem attacks with no substance to them. None. It's like, we got to do better than this, because as long as this is our brand, as long as Jerry Brewer, Mike Jones, and Ryan Clark, and everybody that will sit on TV today and just racism, if that's all the substance you have to bring to the table, and you're making that the brand of black men, that we have no substance other than our willingness to promote our victimhood, why would we be hired for a leadership position? We got people that have covered the NFL for decades. And the only argument that they can make is that the men that built or bought into this NFL money printing machine, the men that pay Patrick Mahomes $50 and $60 million, Dak Prescott $50 and $60 million, all these other players millions upon millions of dollars, the men that run and operate the league that has created more black male millionaires than any other industry. It ain't the rap industry. It's the NFL, and it's by a mile. It's by miles and miles. Their ability to create an industry that makes millionaires of black men. There's been nothing like it in the history of America that can compete with the NFL. The only argument you can make is, well, they're racist. And that's why they won't give us these head coaching jobs. You've covered the league for decades. And everybody Everybody black, everybody liberal that covers the NFL, they've all reached the exact same conclusion. And you're talking about a lack of innovation? A lack of thinking outside the box? It's them, not you? You got to be kidding me. Our entire brand, victim. You meet someone that thinks of themselves as a victim. That is not a leader. And I want to go back up. There was a couple of points he made early in this article that I just wanted to object to. Let me go back. That's how you end up with this damning statistic that will define this carousel 0 for 10. In a league that still recites diversity statements and upholds Rooney Rule interview requirements, no black head coaches were hired, 0. About 1/3 of the NFL was looking for new leaders. Roughly 70% of the players are African American, but 0. Right. So this justification, and it's a weak one, but it keeps getting made over and over and over by these great innovators, these innovative minds in the media space. They all keep saying the same illogical thing. Well, 70% of the players are black, so therefore we should be a higher percentage of the head coaches. Well, most white people are afraid to tell us this, black people. Most white people know that if they were to say what I'm about to say, it would cost them their standing in American society. It would probably cost them their jobs. But here's what they actually say and what they won't tell black people. They'll say, well, hold on now. You want to play games with percentages and say, well, 70% of the players are black, so therefore 70% of the people off the field, or some percentage of them off the field, must be this. And white people sit around and go, hey, man, 80% of the people that got an SAT score over 1,000 are white or Asian, something other than black. That if we went and looked at high school graduation rates, GPA rates, college graduate rates, marriage rates, why would we think the people at the bottom of all those statistical categories, high school graduation, college graduation, SAT score, GPA, marriage rate, the people that score at the bottom of those, oh yeah, that group should produce the highest percentage or a significantly higher percentage of the people we install in leadership positions in a business as profitable and as serious as football. I'm part of this problem because, again, the success of running a marriage says something about you as a leader. And, someone like me that hasn't participated, I haven't failed at marriage because I haven't participated in it. But it's a strike against me as a leader. And anybody with a biblical mindset or a mature mindset would sit there and say, hey, man, Jason hasn't been married. That's a strike against him as a leader. Because there's a whole leadership process to marriage that matures a man and elevates a man and makes him a better leader. And so the people that have failed at marriage or got baby mama drama everywhere, don't look for that demographic of people to produce the top leaders in any industry. These are just the facts that Jerry Brewer, and I don't want to pick on Jerry Brewer, but all of these writers, They will ignore. They think these things are disconnected, and they think they can sit there with one-off anecdotes and say, well, man, if you knew these coaches, this coach, man, he was cheating on his wife, or this coach got divorced. Look at Bill Belichick. He got divorced. And he got a young girlfriend. I'm talking about the Bill Belichick that led the 20-year dynasty. That maybe his marriage was on the rocks for part of it, but he wasn't divorced for all of it. And he went through that marriage process, 15, 20 years? I don't know. I'm speaking off the top of my head. But there's a blueprint for successful coaches. All these guys that win Super Bowls, they got something that connects them all. And then once they start having problems off the field, in their personal lives, their success on the field starts teetering and going the other direction. But there's far more. There's a deeper level of understanding, like what a NFL owner is looking for from his leader as a head coach, that goes well beyond, well, 70% of the players are black, and therefore I must hire a black head coach, despite the fact there are fewer of them as candidates, despite the fact that when it comes to being a graduate assistant coach, which is the starting line for the coaching profession, there are less of them at the starting line to sign up to be a GA, to sign up to make $12,000 a year after graduating college. You can't do that when you got a baby mama. This issue far more complex than these simple-minded arguments that are being made by everybody in the American media, and particularly since this conversation, because white dudes are afraid to enter into this conversation. And so this whole thing is being driven by black journalists. And they're driving a very simplistic conversation, and there's no resistance. The editors are afraid of them, or they're co-conspirators. They're black and want to just, hey, let's help write an article calling NFL ownership racist because, we don't like billionaires, and plus this will get us clicks, and plus it argues. It's a way of me soft-pedaling my argument and my complaints about what's happening to me in the workforce. But I want to go further because he makes a comment here about that the pedigree for all these coaches either come from Harbaugh, that's Jim or John, Kyle Shanahan, or Sean McVay. And what he's arguing is, man, those three guys are developing the coaches that all the other owners want to get someone off their tree, hoping that they can duplicate what Harbaugh, Kyle Shanahan, and Sean McVay have done. And so what Jerry doesn't do is say, well, you know what? Mike Tomlin was the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2 decades. And he developed no one. Mike Tomlin doesn't have a tree. And Mike Tomlin was basically set up as the heir to Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy has been the top black coach in all of football. And Tony Dungy has a coaching tree. He developed and mentored and poured into other coaches, particularly black coaches, who went on to get head coaching opportunities. Mike Tomlin didn't do that. Tony Dungy did that because Tony Dungy has a biblical worldview. Tony Dungy sees himself as a father, as a disciple maker. And so he created disciples. But again, we're in this mentality that we have is that we're not responsible for anything. Black men. Only white men are responsible for our success or failure. And so Mike Tomlin clearly didn't prioritize the development, or maybe he didn't know how to develop young disciples. But he doesn't have any. That's on him. Don't blame them, and don't blame NFL owners, because when Tony Dungy was hot, a bunch of his assistant coaches and a bunch of people he mentored and trained up got jobs. That's Tony Dungy doing his job. And so when we fail at doing our job, let's don't turn around and point a finger and say, well, it's racism. It's Sean McVay's fault. It's Kyle Shanahan's fault. Because let me give you the other thing about Tony Dungy as it relates in comparison to these new wave of black coaches. Tony Dungy, when you're a coaching, I'm going to compare Tony Dungy to Mike Tomlin once again. Tony Dungy had a style of play that owners saw value in. He had a strategy. It was called the Tampa 2. He played the best version of cover 2 defense, and they called it the Tampa 2, and it was Tony Dungy's defense. It's like when Tom Landry was riding high and dominating the NFL, and he was seen as the ultimate coach. He had the doomsday defense. He had a style of defense that he played. Tony Dungy had that. What is the style or strategy that Mike Tomlin has? Defensively, offensively, special teams. What is it? What is he bringing X and O's wise to the table that would excite an owner and make them think, okay, this guy can come in and not just command the room, but Ben Johnson can come to Chicago with a style of offensive play and a style of quarterback play that can benefit my entire organization. Mike Tomlin's brand was, hey, I can relate to the players. And I hear this constantly when we talk about black coaches, when we talk about Deion Sanders. His whole thing he was bringing to Colorado was he could relate to the players. And relating to the players and relating to young people is the most overrated thing in the history of man-making, discipleship, leadership, whatever. We shouldn't, as an older person, as a mentor, being able to relate to, I know what rap music you listen to, and I like to dance to that too, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you like going to that strip club? I used to go there too, or I go there now, but all that relatability, none of it has any value. Being relatable, no value. Do you bring a strategic advantage? And can your strategic advantage capture the mind of these young people that they will buy into and follow you because they know, man, if I do what Ben Johnson says, Caleb Williams, my second contract is going to be through the roof. If I play this style of offense, if I buy into his offensive strategy, if I'm one of Chicago's tight ends or wide receivers or offensive linemen, man, I'm going to get paid. That's what has real value. And so don't blame NFL owners for like, hey, man, Kyle Shanahan plays a style of offense that keeps them in contention year after year after year. I wonder if one of his assistant coaches can bring that style of offense or what he learned from Kyle Shanahan to make us consistent year after year after year. I wonder if Sean McVay coaches a style of offense and one of these assistant coaches where they could come and bring that consistent offensive strategy to my team and make us better. This conversation about what's going on in NFL head coaching, it's so much deeper than this surface level, finger-pointing slop that's being fed to us. I've talked with you all about shared values with ownership. That's important. That there's nobody running any business that wants to hand over control or influence in their business to someone whose values they don't share. I used Gerard Mayo as the example, and I pointed this out in real time. You can go check what I said back when Gerard Mayo was hired in New England, and he went to the press conference, and he listened to Robert Kraft, the owner, say, "Hey, man, I try to be colorblind." And then Gerard Mayo says, "No, I see color because I want to be able to see racism." And I was like, oh, these guys ain't on the same page. And at some point, that's going to cause some real friction, particularly in this highly racialized discussion we have going on in sports. You got a coach who thinks seeing race is important so he can spot racism, and he thinks it's his job to wake up every day and spot racism and identify racism, where every coach that's had any consistent success in sports has preached just the opposite. We actually want to eliminate race and come together on a shared mission, a shared goal, a shared set of values, and come together under that. But I want to play you the clips from, this is Gerard Mayo, and then I want you to think about why Mike Vrabel, Gerard Mayo went 4-13 last year. And Mike Vrabel comes in the next year and has the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. And people, why did Robert Kraft get rid of Gerard Mayo so quick? And I'm going to explain to you why, but first I want to just reset and replay their press conference from day one. Gerard Mayo and Robert Kraft, and how anybody with a brain should have been like, oh, this is a problem. Let's play Gerard Mayo.
I do see color because I believe if you don't see color, you can't see racism. And whatever happens, black, white, disabled person, I've always, even someone with disabilities, I always, for the most part, people are like, when they're young, they kind of make the spot hot. Younger people know what that means. But what I would say is, no, I want you to be able to go up to those people and really understand those people. So it goes back to whatever it is, black, white, yellow, it really doesn't matter, but it does matter so we can try to fix the problem.
He's distracted. He's taken on the burden that he's going to be the race negotiator on his football team. That didn't go well. And I'm sure Robert Kraft sitting next to him during that press conference was like, oh boy, we got a problem here. The owner and the head coach don't have a shared vision. Let's play Robert Kraft.
Gerard said that being the first black coach was important to him. Curious, what does it mean to you? And if I could ask you, Gerard, have you reached out to any of the folks like, Tony or, Tomlin, just to get their sense of what it means to them?
You want to start it off?
Yeah. Let me say this to you. I'm really colorblind in terms of, I know what I feel like on Sunday when we lose. And I can just tell you that there's nothing after my family, my passion is with the New England Patriots, and there's something else very close second, but winning at the Patriots is my passion. So I want to get the best people I can get. I chose the best head coach for this organization. He happens to be a man of color, but I chose him because I believe he's best to do the job.
This is a fundamental, foundational worldview issue. And black people have convinced ourselves that what white people need to do is throw out their values and be open to values that they disagree with. And that's what diversity is all about. And so Robert Kraft got hoodwinked, talked into like, hey man, there's a certain way I see this organization and building this team and winning in football, but let me be diverse. Let me get out of my comfort zone, and let me hire a head coach who wants to come in here and see race at every turn and totally disagrees with me on how to see a football team and how to build a football team as it relates to the racial component. And that's why Robert Kraft, after 1 year, said, I'm out. Because he did something that didn't feel right in his gut. He watched it play out over the course of a 4-13 season, and he immediately said, like, nah, I got to do what I believe next time. And you know what I really believe is that Mike Vrabel, former player, he's who I should have hired the first time, and I'm going to hire him. And we have convinced ourselves that, nope, good white people must put their values on the back burner and embrace our and empower our values. I'll give you the example. Someone like Ryan Clark would argue that, you know, white people have to be tolerant of values that are antithetical to their own. And let's ask Ryan Clark if he applies that to himself. Ryan Clark got in or felt he disagreed with Sage Steele about a racial issue and would not go on camera with her. Would not appear on camera with her. Proudly has stated this. So he gets to hold on to his values and draw a line in a sand with Sage Steele, who's half black, half white. And he gets to say, no, I won't work with her because we disagree on something about race. But white people, no matter what Ryan Clark thinks, they got to put it on the back burner, deal with it, empower him, work with him. How if some white person refused to go on camera with Ryan Clark, or a black person refused to go on camera, there would be hell to pay, and everybody would look at that person like they're crazy. This issue, as it relates to this hiring cycle, far more complex than what anybody wants to talk about. Anybody, and I'm going to land the plane here because I want to bring Bucky Brooks. I want to open up myself and the audience to perhaps a different perspective or a little bit more nuance to it. Because, again, I like having these conversations because I get to grow. I get to push back. Maybe it takes my thinking to a higher level. But this conversation about black coaches, it's actually what is killing black coaches. They're not getting good advice. They're not being told, hey, like there's a whole set of values that go along with coaching sports. There's a whole set of values that went along with the foundation of organized sports that came from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, that came from a Christian worldview. And you need to get in line with those values. And you need to understand the concept of surrender. It's like, hey, my owner, this is the way he wants things done. I need to execute in a way that's consistent with his values. This is what men have been doing since the beginning of time, successful men. For all the people that, no, I want to do it my way, and, you know, even if my way isn't consistent with the way with the person paying the bills, I still get to do it because I'm black. That makes you unhireable. And next year, you may throw a big enough tantrum this offseason that next year there'll be 5 openings in the NFL and maybe 3 of them will go to black coaches. But it's always going to be this inconsistent roller coaster. And quite frankly, the coaches that don't disavow the black victim mentality, they're going to continue to get these jobs and continue to fail. But I'm going to land the plane here, bringing Bucky Brooks into the conversation. Before we get to Bucky, I want to tell you guys about one of our other top sponsors, Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free daily supplement that I take every day. It helps me with my aches and pains. It helps me with my inflammation. Quite frankly, inflammation is the source of those aches and pains that are compromising your mobility, making you think you can't do what you used to be able to do. Well, actually, you can. Take my own story, but also take, and I've shared this, guys, with you all the time, Jeffrey Steele, my best friend from the country music industry, 64 years old. Just came out with a great song called A Voice. Guy's tremendous, tremendous talent, but he's 64. He bikes 30 miles every morning because he takes Relief Factor. The guy's still running around here like he's 35 years old, and Relief Factor is a big part of his story. There's a 3-week quick start program for Relief Factor that's only $19.95. Within that 3 weeks, you will find out if Relief Factor is a source, a solution for you as it relates to those aches and pains. 70% of the people that try the 3-week quick start circle back and re-up for the full package because they're already experiencing the benefits of Relief Factor. It's just $19.95, guys. $19.95, and you can perhaps find a solution to some of the relief from those aches and pains that are compromising your life. There's 2 ways to get it. Visit relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com, or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. We're going nowhere. I'm ready to roll right into Bucky Brooks. I think I hear Bucky. Bucky, I'm not even going to start with a question. I'm going to start with just saying the floor is yours. Pick up wherever you think I may have made a mistake, or wherever maybe you want to amen me or whatever. But the conversation, the floor is yours. Bucky, I think you're muted. I hope. That's the problem. Uh-oh.
All right, now you got me.
I got you, yeah.
It's user error. I didn't punch the on button. Look, I think it's an interesting discourse, and I think these are the conversations that for years we've had at dinner tables when you're coming up and you're talking about what the expectation is. And I think the expectation for coaches and general managers, and particularly those of color, Black general managers and coaches, that, look, you have to exceed in the roles that you're given. And when you're given an opportunity as a leader, it's incumbent upon you to pour into those that are coming behind you. Like, that is the expectation. That's how it's always been taught to us, and that's what we should expect. Now, the nuance that everyone must understand when it comes to the coaching hirings, having 10 openings, 1 going to a minority, Robert Saleh going to the Tennessee Titans, is this. And it goes back to when I was in college. There was a study that Dr. Harry B. Edwards did where he talked about players and positions of centrality. And so on the football field, when you play, quarterback, center, Mike linebacker, free safety are the positions of centrality, the communication positions. In coaching, most of your coaches, if you look at, they come from those positions. And so for years, because Blacks weren't allowed at times to play those spots, we've been behind in the pipeline because we weren't afforded those opportunities to make the transitions from the field to the sidelines due to the lack of experience and expertise in those things. It has since changed where we are given those opportunities to grow from the defensive side of the ball, but right now we just haven't cracked the code when it comes to coaching the quarterback, being around the quarterback, calling plays on offense, and ascending to head coach. Some of that is, people will say, like, lack of opportunity, but a lot of it is perception when it comes to those guys getting jobs and the head coaching thing. Because as an announcer, if I am always saying, hey, this guy with the play sheet is, man, he's the next one to come, well, after a while, it kind of becomes true. Owners look at TV games, owners hear those names. The guys who are on the offense of the ball get a ton of praise for when they call games, even though coordinators have nothing, being a good coordinator has nothing to do with being a good head coach. It doesn't relate. It's just that right now, when you see opportunities for us, it comes from the defense side of the ball more than the offense side of the ball. And there are just not enough offensive coaches in the pipeline to be the next ones to ascend to the head coaching position.
Bucky, I believe there's 2 defensive coaches in the Super Bowl. And when we got down to the final 8 teams, I think 4 of them were coached by defensive coaches, 4 by offensive coaches. I do think I disagree that everything has to come from the offensive side. I really disagree with being a good coordinator has nothing to do with being a head coach. I completely disagree with that because I believe there is a strategic advantage that a head coach can bring. Marty Schottenheimer came up on the defensive side of football, and having known Gunther Cunningham and Marty Schottenheimer very well, I can remember Gunther Cunningham telling me that like Marty Schottenheimer as the head coach, Gunther could run into a problem and Marty could come into the room, have a 15-minute conversation with Gunther and solve that problem or get him on the path to solving that problem. And so the head coach actually coaches the assistant coaches. That's his job. And if you have a specific advantage on one side of the ball, offense or defense, it allows you to coach at least one side of the ball better. And a lot of times, like Marty could go into the offensive room because he knew defenses so well. Hey, here's what the defense is thinking. Here's what would really trouble me if I were this. And so I do think there's an advantage from being a coordinator that translates to being a head coach.
There are some advantages. I don't think it's a prerequisite for being a great head coach. Even if we look at like Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel spent 1 year as the defensive coordinator in Houston before he ascended to be a head coach with the Tennessee Titans. Mike Tomlin, who you talked about, was only a defensive coordinator for 1 year before he became the head coach. There's certainly value. And the number one job of the head coach outside of building the culture is you're the number one problem solver. Because from players and coaching, when there's an issue, everyone looks to the head coach. And the head coach must be able to answer those problems or you lose the team. So I agree with you in using that example from Marty and Gunn and those things. And there's a tremendous amount of value. I think my bigger issue is the way that it's painted, because I think a lot of the things that we get come from our side, not the coaching side. Meaning, when we are watching a game, a lot of the value is from the announcers who anoint certain people to be the next ones, right? So when we watch games, we're like, oh, he's going to be a great head coach one day. Clint Kubiak's going to be a great head coach. Oh, somebody in the Sean McVay tree who is the offensive coordinator, they're going to be great. Well, I think when you really dig deep, most of the guys who announce games are quarterbacks. And so our fascination, our increased fascination with the head coach must be the guy to get the quarterback right, comes from a perspective of former quarterbacks talking about that. But you know, and I know, that the team is really what the head coach is responsible for. And it takes a great team to win at the highest level. And the person that you anoint as the leader of the team must understand that beyond just getting the quarterback to play at a high level. There's so many more things to being a head coach than just getting the quarterback to play at a high level. Because there are a lot of great quarterbacks that were not in the playoffs this year. Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes was hurt, Joe Burrow. The teams are the teams. The guys with the best teams, the roster that are constructed well, those are the ones that are playing. And it's important as owners are looking that they feel confident that the person that's in charge of the team can put together a team that can win and compete at a high level while also taking care of the quarterback.
It's Bucky, having played defense, you were a cornerback in the National Football League. Defense is the more emotional side of football. Mm-hmm. And being able to pull the emotion out of a defensive side of football to get players to play at a high level, that's different than X's and O's and drawing up offensive strategies. The offensive side of the game is more intellectual. Would you not agree?
I wouldn't agree with that. I think that's the perception. And I think that's always been the perception. I think there are great tactical strategies that are being utilized in the National Football League. And I think, look, Mike McDonald is a great example of someone that is on the forefront of the movement. People are talking about Brian Flores and the stuff that he's doing in Minnesota. There are great X's and O's things that are going on. I think that is kind of like an old wives' tale where we talked about like defensive coaches exhorting and getting guys going and emotionally, let's go beat them up and let's do that. It's more to it than that. I do understand the emotion and the feel that you get when you watch a dominant defense play, but there is an X and O's thing to it. Now, defensive coaches don't carry the play sheet that offensive guys do. Offensive coaches like to come with 100 and 150 plays. Defensively, you don't do that because it's impossible to have that much volume and handle all the variables that you can face from the offense. But there certainly is an X and O's part of being a great defensive coordinator. And I think it also plays out when you do go from being a defense coordinator to a head coach. Yeah, it certainly can be an advantage.
Bucky, do you think? There's two different. I once asked this question on Speak for Yourself, and I befuddled people because this assertion that it must be racism, and so I started asking guys like, okay, tell me the racist owner. Was your owner racist? And no one would say that their owner was racist. And I would tell me who the racist owner is. Who's the owner out there that's like, man, I ain't helping these black dudes, or I'm not putting a black guy at the heck. Tell me who the racist owner is so that I can buy and understand your argument. And I know that's not the argument that you're making, but that does seem to be the argument many people in the media are making, like, this whole system is racist and they're just not comfortable with black head coaches. I don't buy it.
I think there's so many different things to touch on before you can call it that. So I can't call it racism. I think it's a level of familiarity. I think there's a comfort level. I think when we look at the workplace, let's just say civilian workplaces and how most people get jobs, a lot of times, like, you get jobs because of friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, you put me on Speak for Yourself because we had a relationship prior, because you knew me, you trusted me, or whatever. And that's typically how it goes in America. And sports are the same. And so people talk about nepotism and those things. Well, it's nepotism, cronyism, or whatever. A lot of times people gravitate to those they know, whether they know their dads, their uncles, a colleague. It is, look, I'm gonna try and put my son in advantage, my daughter in advantageous situations where they know people that can help them out. That's what people do. And so I think it's a deal where the pipeline is screwy because depending on where you come and who you know, who you're exposed to, you may not have the advantages to get right beside the people that are the decision makers. And so all of us in life need advocates to help us kind of make moves. And I think sometimes, depending on where coaches come or minority coaches, they may not have an advocate in the building that can help them get in those positions that ultimately jump to the front of the line when it comes to a coordinator position or a head coaching position, despite some of the merits that they may show as workers.
Okay, so I know this is, to my understanding, has really only happened once, and that's with Brian Flores. But if I'm an NFL owner and I go in like, hey, my head coach comes from a mentality that black people are victims here in America. And that makes me apprehensive because, like, when is he potentially going to turn the gun on me like Brian Flores did on Stephen Ross in the NFL? I was treated unfairly. The NFL's racist. And it's the lack of shared values, in my view, because what I hear from Bob Kraft and what Gerard Mayo, if I were to translate it, put it through the Whitlock translator, Bob Kraft is basically saying, hey, man, I don't believe in victimhood. And Gerard Mayo is saying, I believe in victimhood. And if I'm Bob Kraft, I don't want anybody that sees themselves as a potential victim. I don't want them working for me.
Yeah, I can say that. I would say that in a way, Jason, before you even get to Bob Kraft, I think it kind of relates in your own home. I think you grew up with a family and a father. I grew up with a father where they told you, like, hey, man, you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as far. Like, these are the circumstances. And so this is what you're facing. You need to outwork and outlast everyone that you are surrounded by. And that's just kind of what it is. And you don't cry about it. You can't, as you talk about, take the victim mentality. You got to roll up your sleeves and go to work. And whatever it is, it is. And um, I remember this, and I remember having a conversation with Paul Silas before he passed. I bumped into him in a hotel in Indianapolis, and what he talked about, and he said, and I think this holds true for everybody. He said, black and average will get you fired. He's like, so you just have to know what that is when you take these jobs. You're not going to get the perfect job. You got to find a way to do what you can with what you have. And then once you get that, then you can make it better. But these are the circumstances that you're going to get. You may take a job that you don't have all the resources, but no one cares. And so there is some of that where you talk about wiping away the victim mentality. Yeah, you just have to go to work. And it's not going to be perfect, but nobody cares. And if you understand that going in, well, then you eliminate some of the excuses on the way out.
A lot of the conversation that the media drives about this issue, I think also puts black coaches in a tough position. There's a lot, you hire a black coach, and, again, you can fire Pete Carroll, who's won a Super Bowl, been to another, had success at USC. You can fire him after a year. No one bats an eye. Fire a black coach after a year or two, and, there's segments being done on you on ESPN and all across social media questioning everything about you.
Yeah, like I think there's certainly some of that, right? The conversation can make people uncomfortable. But I would say a lot of these conversations sometimes get hijacked and they become issues that extend beyond the coaches that are trying to fight the good fight when it comes to like trying to advance their careers, advance the careers of others by advocating for them. Because it has become such a polarizing issue that you can't even really have a discussion about it without people feeling some kind of way. I would say that if you are in a position of power, black or white, like you always want to pour into those that are coming behind you. You always want to pass on the experiences and the expertise so they're better prepared to handle the things that may be down the road for them as they try and climb the ladder. And look, you just have to deal with it and you have to be able to go on. But I do think we've reached a time in our country where we can't have the discourse without it being one that detracts from what the real issue is. And that is, hey, how come guys aren't getting opportunities? How can we set them up to take advantage of the opportunities that do come their way? What are the things that we can do to make sure what we call the playing field level or whatever? What are the things we can do to better prepare our people for the opportunities? And then it's about when you get your opportunity, you have to take advantage of the opportunity because ultimately that's what it's going to be.
Bucky, I want to drop one more topic on you before I let you go. The Minnesota Vikings fired their general manager. I believe it's Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And an interesting story has come out that he took a 2-week paternity leave and worked from home the first 2 weeks after his child was born. This has set off a little back and forth. Should this even be discussed? Is he right or wrong? What do you think about your general manager? I think, and this happened during training camp, working from home for 2 weeks and taking a full paternity leave. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Interestingly, Jason, I was up at training camp when that story took place. I was there. It was like kickoff weekend when it happened, and he wasn't available because he was on paternity leave. Now, I do remember because remember, the world that we're coming from in football is an archaic world. We haven't got up to speed in terms of the new changes when it comes to HR and the workplace rules and those things. And so I do remember it being like, but I am also of a place that, look, the job can be done remotely at times, but what he's working against is an old guard that are used to operating a certain way. And when you do that, and if you've had a bunch of people that are under you or a bunch of people around the league who haven't operated in that lane, it's hard for them to look at you the same way. And I'm not saying that is right. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. Because we've all sat in rooms where people are trying to sit around the longest to say, I'm the hardest working person. And even though he may have been doing a fine job at home, because he's not visible, there can be this perception that he's not working. What is he doing if he's not here? And because as coaches and as football people are known to do, they make the game way bigger than it needs to be in terms of getting the work done. So he certainly falls prey to that. But here's what I would really say was probably the bigger issue, and it's the issue that people don't touch on. He had an unconventional background to be a general manager, basketball player in college, Ivy Leaguer, worked on Wall Street, analytics background, quickly ascended up the ladder in San Francisco, 1 year in Cleveland. Now he's the general manager. And in these articles that you read, they talk about his inexperience and the lack of intimate football knowledge impacting him. And when you're in a position of power, we talk about the head coach and being the problem solver. Well, if you're in a room with scouts and evaluators and you don't know some of the basics of ball, man, it makes it really hard for the people around you to respect you. And it also can create a divide because you know how coaches are and you know how scouts are. And if coaches don't feel like you're up to snuff where we can have a conversation, a real debate about the game because of your lack of knowledge, man, it's hard for them to ride with you. I think that's a much bigger issue than the paternity thing. I think the lack of experience, the lack of football knowledge ultimately did him in a highly competitive world where everyone expects you to know not only the X's and O's, but how the Jimmies and Joes will project to the next level.
Well, wouldn't you just say there's an absence of common sense here in terms of like, hey, man, I'm a basketball player. I'm surrounded by all these hardcore football people. They're questioning everything about me. The last thing I need to do is take a 2-week paternity leave because this isn't going to play well in this room. And again, when I hear Ivy League, my mind immediately goes to arrogant. And when I hear, hey, I'm going to take 2 weeks off, even though I'm surrounded by a bunch of sharks, and it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter how much you know about football, you're always going to be surrounded by sharks and by people that were like, man, I'd like to have his job because it pays more than my job. And so this, to me, the whole thing, from the paternity leave, it just all sounds like naivety. Just
Maybe. Yeah, and I think,
arrogance.
well, I would like, I only know him a little bit, so I can't say arrogant. And I won't say like, look, I would want all of our people to go to Ivy League schools in the sin if they have an opportunity to take great educations in those things. I know you disagree with that, but I'm just saying. So I wouldn't look down upon them for the Ivy League thing. I would just say the awareness in terms of understanding where I'm at, what I'm doing, what I know, what my blind spots are. Have I surrounded myself with enough people that can help me with those blind spots so it doesn't become a bigger issue? I think that is smart staffing in terms of making sure I know what my weaknesses are. We talk about the SWOT analysis test. Let me make sure that the people I surround myself with understand how to protect me as I bring them in. And it doesn't seem like he was very protected by the people around the building in terms of his shortcomings and what they knew he lacked as a leader and as a football man.
Yeah, look, if you're not, people are going to sit back and let you fail and hope that when they start looking for your replacement, they hope they're on the interview list. I mean, that's just the nature of being at the top of the mountain. You're in the NFL, those 7-figure paychecks, and this whole expert class, this whole getting put in a microwave out in San Francisco, and then having the Haslams buy the hype and put a little bit more branding on you. These overbook educated people with no common sense. That's how we've gotten into problems. This whole expert class. That's how everybody got vaxxed and boosted. Where those of us with 2.3 GPAs from Ball State was like, nah, I'm good.
I'm not going.
You know what? It ain't in the Bible. That's all I know. So no vax for me, babe.
No, but
I'm good.
I'm gonna let you have the vaccination whether you got boosted or not. But I will say this: I will say it's really important as a leader that you have enough awareness to know who you are and to know where your blind spots are. And it appeared that he didn't have a clear understanding of his blind spots. And as you say, in a business with a bunch of sharks, they were laying back in the cut waiting for him to stub his toe so they could take advantage of those things. And it's amazing. He gets fired on Friday, and those stories hit the web right away. So those things were ready and teed up so people could take shots at him. And that's one of the things that you have to know as a leader, that everyone is always sitting in the cut waiting for you to stumble.
And his drafts sucked. You know, they didn't produce.
I mean, the first one
fruit.
wasn't great. They weren't great. And so that's another thing. I think my biggest thing, as we say, as a football person, as a player coming up through the ranks as a scout, that part, as you talk about common sense, like, man, it would appear that if you want to build great football teams, that you would have football people doing those things. And I'm not saying that you can come from a non-traditional background, because I've seen guys. Scott McCloughan was a baseball player, but his family were football people, his dad, his brother, so they could help him and educate him and teach him the games and the nuances. You have to have some of that. And and I've said this because I know the analytics crowd always gets on me, but as we've kind of veered towards more of an analytical take, we do have more of the quote unquote nerds taking over as opposed to the football people. And sometimes this is what you get when you don't have enough football people in the right spots.
Bucky, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Great job as always. That's Bucky Brooks. Man, I don't know. I got a third gust of energy here. Is Steve Kerr ready to go? Have I made him wait too long? As you know, Steve can be a diva. Oh, we got to take a break. Let me take a little sip of water here. We'll be right back with Steve Kerr next.
ESPN sucks.
She's a one of ones, but is there like a comparison of someone either you played with or you guys watching the game right now that reminds you of the young lady to your right?
I like Peyton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle the basketball. He makes big shots.
I'm very upset going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers because I want to stay for the record, and I'm not joking about this. I'm dead serious. I believe that Ryan Clark should have been interviewed for the job.
Notre Dame hasn't been relevant in years.
They were just in the national championship game 1 year ago.
They haven't been relevant for years.
No, he's going to get into the Hall of Fame, and in 20 years, nobody is going to care. I'm sorry, I'll throw that out there. That it wasn't this year, that it was the next year.
I don't know about that.
If anything, by the way, this has resuscitated Bill Belichick's reputation because everybody's remembered, oh my God, he's the greatest coach in NFL history.
I don't think anybody ever forgot that Bill was the greatest coach in NFL history.
And that's why
ESPN sucks.
As the NFL turns, starring quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, with special appearances from Commissioner Roger Goodell and coaches Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, and the Harbaughs. Brought to you by the global elites.
All right, welcome back. Steve Kerr. Big controversy in the NFL. 10 coaching openings. No Asian hires. Your reaction?
Yeah, still waiting for Norm Chow to get that call. Here's what I think. You reminded me of something in the beginning. Here's what I think happened with all the NFL owners and Goodell. They had a meeting, and they said, well, wait a minute. There's no Jim Trotter this year? Oh, okay. We can hire all right, get all the white guys. Get all the white guys. There's no Trotter to virtue signal. And that's what happened. But again, I think you raise a good question. Who is this year's version of Marvin Lewis? Or Tony Dungy, that everyone says, hey, that is the guy. That guy should get a job right now. He's hot. He's on everybody's short list. And a couple things. I think the specter of Gerard Mayo hangs over a lot of people's heads. Also, Aaron Glenn did not do the movement of black coaches a lot of favors. And the fact and going back to New England now, Kraft said, you know what, I'm just going to do it my way. Damn all the boxes that aren't checked. I'm going to go with Vrabel. Vrabel's in the Super Bowl. And maybe every team is now like, you know what, we are further and further away from 2020. We could do the virtue signaling on Twitter, but in terms of like real life decisions, we're going to do the best for us as we think at this time.
Look, I was reading the Jerry Brewer story, and he was talking about everybody wants a Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay or some Harbaugh assistant. And I'm like, okay, what's the that's been the pattern? And I was just looking here at Tony Dungy's coaching tree, and it includes Herm Edwards, it includes Rod Marinelli, it includes Lovie Smith, Jim Caldwell, Mike Tomlin, Leslie Frazier. They did the same thing when it was a black coach and everybody was coming to pick apples off his tree. It was all great. Now that it's Sean McVay or a white coach, Kyle Shanahan, the Harbaughs, now it's a bad thing. Well, how about the black coaches? Mike Tomlin, 19 years the Steelers coach. There's no apples from his tree. Whose fault is that?
Well, is there even a bush? Is there a weed? I mean, seriously, who has been, and I know people have talked about this, kind of in passing, has Mike Tomlin developed a system where coaches come out almost routine? Now, trees don't always work out. The Belichick tree isn't very good. That thing needs to be chopped down. I would not trust a Belichick disciple. Now, keep this in mind, Vrabel never coached for him, so that's a little bit different. And that's the other thing about the Brewer story. Yeah, everyone wants a coach that's highly productive and goes to Super Bowls. You know, the temerity of that. You want a coach that's going to win 12 to 13 games, going to have you in contention, and you might win a Super Bowl. Well, Jim, who doesn't want that?
Everybody wants it. I saw this coming. I'm wondering, again, let's go back to your original point of like, what did kind of give them the backbone? Because normally speaking, I think deals have been cut in the late stages, pressure's been placed, but those pressure points didn't happen, and maybe the NFL owners have black fatigue.
To us, you know, I think look, they're all human, and they may never state it publicly, maybe even privately among themselves. You know how these things leak out. But there comes a point in time you're like, wait a minute, I'm the billionaire. It's my job on the line. It's my team. I kind of want to win here. I'm going to do. I want to make my fans happy instead of Jamel Hill. Believe it or not, they have the right to do that. I will say this, and you may disagree, and I think you already do. I thought Raheem Morris got a bad deal. I thought Raheem deserved one more year. I don't think he was terrible, wasn't good. What I would have told him was, Raheem, you got one more year here. We've been mediocre. Pick your quarterback, whichever one you want. That guy's job is in your arm. Year 3, make it or break it. I thought that was unfair. Now, I don't know if that had to do with color or anything else like that. I know how people feel about it. I do think Morris, though, got the short end of the stick.
Arthur Blank is pretty woke, and I would tend to think for him to have made that move, there's things we don't know about, but the thing we do know about could get you fired. Whatever discussions they had about, hey, we're going to bring in Kirk Cousins and we're going to guarantee him all this money, and then we're going to turn around and draft Michael Penix, that just didn't work out. And if I'm Arthur Blank and I'm like, man, I'm paying Kirk Cousins a lot of money, and these guys have already bungled Michael Penix, and Michael Penix went into a press conference or inadvertently said, hey, man, no one on this coaching staff talks to me. Yeah. That got Raheem Morris fired.
Oh, we addressed that about, 3.5, 4 months ago. Jason, here's the thing. So Robert Saleh got a job, right?
Yes.
They don't claim him?
Not anymore, no.
Why? I don't, because here's the thing. If you were to line up Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel.
I think you're not authentically black if you have a dad, Steve.
Okay, you said it, not me. I'm
You're
just,
not
I'm just
authentically
asking
a
a
person
question.
of color. If you have
Mike
done it.
McDaniel was claimed, and I'm like, if you lined up both of them, you say, which guy is really the man of who's really a POC, person of color? I'd be like, Saleh, right? Right? Brown paper
Got a
bag
dad.
theory, right? The shade, anyway. Anyway.
Got a dad.
Mm,
You can't have a dad and be
Mm.
an authentically black coach. Are you done with the coaches deal? Should I move on?
Yeah, go ahead. It's your show. I'll let you move on.
Let's move on. Deion Sanders, I think we got the clip here. Deion Sanders insinuates here that the coaches and executives in the National Football League put Shedeur in the Pro Bowl. Let's listen to Coach Sanders here. Coach Prime, I'm sorry.
Pro Bowl. My son did something that I didn't do. He made the Pro Bowl in his first year. I made it in my third year, but he made it in his first year, so he got that over me right now.
How good does it feel for Shedeur to be able? It's kind of like an "I told you so" moment, because we all know that what happened during the draft was unjustified.
Right.
And then to come out swinging, as soon as he was able to get on that field, he showed them what he got.
Well, it's
and
more
now
like
to do Pro Bowl.
It's more like a not "I told you so" moment. It's more like a God is good moment. Like y'all don't understand like what I'm on. Like y'all don't understand who got my back. Y'all don't understand who riding with me. Y'all don't understand who's propelling me. That's what it is, and we like that.
Did he call you as soon as he found out, or did you know he was going to Pro Bowl before he found out he was going? Because people call you.
I think he Joker ain't calling me. I was told, but as a father, you go into protection mode. Like, okay, if this good, is this bad? How they gonna spin it? How they gonna flip it? Because most people don't know. It's a percentage of the major percentage is from the coaches and the players, their selection. Then the fans get a smaller percentage of votes, like 40-40-20. It's like that. So that has to be noted, that the coaches, players, then the fans. It's not just a fan thing. So
So the coaches, 40, executives, 40, 20% fans, Deion had an opportunity to say, hey, look, the Pro Bowl's not what it used to be. It's a different type of event. Shedeur will add to the TV ratings. But Deion is trying to argue like Shedeur earned this.
So if that's his third year, that is 1991. I've said this before on various shows. If you ever go to YouTube, type in 1991 Pro Bowl, and there's a highlight montage. Jason, that was a serious football game. That's in an era when everybody from Bruce Smith, Reggie White, Joe Montana, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Michael Irvin, Jerry Rice, by the fourth quarter, they played hard. It was actually real football. It was impressive. To make the Pro Bowl now, it's almost like they're punishing you. It is. It's a punishment. It's just one less week before you can go to Cancun or go to Europe. Do whatever you do. Basically, you're down to your 8th or 9th guy. And what did Shedeur really show? He played like a 5th rounder. He did not play like a guy at any time where I said, man, that guy should have been a top 10 pick. No, he played like a flawed young quarterback that still holds the ball too long, makes shaky decisions, and takes way too many sacks. What exactly did he show? In all fairness, I saw a lot of headlines. Shedeur Sanders is final proof that the Pro Bowl no longer matters. To be fair, Jason, it hadn't mattered in 15 years. Okay, the moment Brian Moorman, the Bills punter, tried that fake punt and Sean Taylor obliterated him, there was a movement within the players and I believe even the management, like, well, wait a minute, let's not get anyone hurt here. And it was at that moment they started to make this into what it eventually became. So this is not on Shedeur, at least that aspect.
There's something about Shedeur I meant to bring up last week to you or to the audience, is that this head coach hiring of Todd Monken, people are, I think, not picking up on the fact. I think the hiring of Todd Monken is a clear indication they're going all in on Shedeur.
Yeah.
That they have reached the conclusion, hey, you know what Shedeur's real strength this season, what he showed was, hey, man, he runs the ball better than we anticipated. And so we're going to lean into that with Todd Monken And again, he's not going to be Lamar, but, they're going to run him. They're going to run Shedeur Sanders. They're going to run an offense that Shedeur Sanders could potentially excel in.
Well, hold on. They better run an offense he's good at. They better not run him. If you're talking about +1 run concepts, right, where it's a design quarterback run, not extending the play, not scrambling, he's too frail and he's not Lamar Jackson. But to your point, Jason, Todd Monken was with the Baltimore Ravens, correct?
Yes.
Wasn't that a team that expressed interest in him and he said, nah, I'm good. I got all the leverage here. I don't want to be a backup. Okay. But it's obvious that Monken thought he could play a little bit. So now he has his coach. So I don't want to hear from that cult, oh, the coach is against him again. I believe Todd Monken is a first-time NFL coach. He is going to need Shedeur to be a good player. So if Shedeur fails, it will not be about a coaching staff that has any type of agenda against him.
I think you're wrong. I think they're going to run the +1.
Oh, with him? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Yes. Why do you think I'm crazy about that?
Because I've seen him play. That's not his game. He's a pocket passer that can extend the play, but in terms of pure athleticism, he is not at the level of a Josh Allen. I don't even think he's at the level of a Patrick Mahomes. Certainly not the level of a Lamar Jackson or a Steve Young type of guy. He's not.
He's not. Patrick Mahomes, I could see people saying he can run as well as Patrick Mahomes. He can't throw as well. But I don't think I'm crazy here. Peyton, would you run the typical run offense with Shedeur? Would you Peyton, you're no? You're hell no, huh? Steve's right.
I am. Jason, you got to treat him like a traditional white quarterback that has a little bit of athleticism.
The only skill he showed this year was his ability to run, and I think and part of it is going to be like, hey, either this is going to work or Shedeur is going to get beat up and we'll get rid of him because, he broke a hip or something.
Okay, you're telling me he's Randall Cunningham 2.0 and he
No, I'm not.
I'm just telling you, if it's a +1, what is a quarterback +1? That means like a quarterback sweep, quarterback draw, quarterback power. Have you seen the way he's built? This ain't Dante Culpepper. I'm just letting you know. He ain't Dante Culpepper in terms of physical stature. Good luck with that.
All right, Steve, I don't know if I told you I was going to ask you this, but I think you can. I want to play you the Draymond Green clip where a white ref put a hand in his face, and that's a bridge too far. Let's play Draymond Green.
I will tell you, though, I find it very ironic that I got a technical foul for telling a Caucasian referee not to put his hand in my face. As a black man in America, don't put your hand in my face. And I said, hey, don't put your hand in my face, and I got a tech. So I thought that was the most interesting thing of the night.
Did he try to explain himself?
He said, Draymond, this is your chance to stop talking to me, bro. Don't put your hand in my face. Oh, tech. Oh, okay. So, everybody want to talk about holding the line of respect. That line need to be held both ways, so. If the line won't be held both ways, then the line won't be held from my way either, because we all men.
Right.
And we all can make decisions and choices. So, let that be the last time that happened.
There's Draymond Green going full-blown ghetto black woman. Don't put your hand in my face. Don't you put your hand in my face. That's I'm not a Draymond fan.
I'm just telling you one thing right now. He's lucky that he never had to be refereed by Earl Strom or Daryl Garrettson. Well, was he in the league? Was he in the league with Steve Javie at any time? That would have been interesting. Here's the thing, then. So what he did to Jordan Poole, is that black on black crime?
He put his hand in Jordan Poole's face.
Oh, he got all up in his face. He got in his face. I mean, wow.
Yeah. I'm just telling this whole. And again, I'm not into it, but when did putting your hand into someone's face, when did that become racialized? Was there a scene in Roots where Massa Reynolds put his hand in Kunta Kinte's face or Fiddler's face? Did I forget that? Or when is there some long tradition of white racists putting their hands in black people's face?
Not that I know of, but again, let's look at the history. Draymond Green is the guy that said the word owner is racist, and now everyone calls them governors. This is what happens when we allow dumb jocks to act. Look, they're allowed to have their say, but at what point did my comments have to be taken seriously? Everything should have been kind of like snickered out of it. You know, that's the biggest issue with the NBA media, though. They allow Doc Rivers to bloviate, and nobody pushes back at all.
Well, that's a good segue because someone did push back against Steve Kerr. An Outkick reporter went to a press conference and got Steve Kerr basically to apologize for the misinformation he was spreading about ICE. Let's play Steve Kerr.
Andrew from Outkick.com. So going back to the situation in Minneapolis and some of the comments that were made there. So I know you had mentioned that, you know, ICE isn't rooting out violent criminals, but is instead taking 5-year-olds. Since we know that ICE has indeed arrested violent criminals, and perhaps some of those statements could be seen as misinformed or possibly divisive, what would you say to that?
You're right. I definitely misspoke, and I knew that ICE was arresting some criminals, and I think I immediately regretted it because I knew that to be the case. But my point is that they're also arresting people and detaining citizens and people who should not be being detained. And the manner in which they're doing it, and as you see, is riling everybody up all over the country. And being in Minneapolis for those 4 days was incredibly emotional and powerful. And it was a very difficult time for all of us. So we... at the end of those 4 days, pretty emotional time. I misspoke, and so I apologize for the misinformation. So I hope everybody else out there who's saying stuff that's not true, please apologize too. All right, let's talk about basketball.
You did highlight that
I addressed everything I wanted to address in Minneapolis, but I am glad you said that because that was false, what I said. And so I want to correct that for the record. So thank you.
He blew it at the end with his little condescending. Let's get back to talking basketball.
I just want to shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
I just want to shut up and dribble. You know.
Yeah. And he blew it at the end. Got condescending. He's the one that brought the conversation up, the ICE whole deal, and now he wants to put parameters on how he'll be questioned about it.
Well, you know, your old colleagues that are on Outkick, I don't think they'll be getting NBA credentials anymore. And if they're lucky, they won't be getting any WNBA credentials. But anyway, couple things, though, about Steve Kerr. Those 4 days in Minneapolis, was he out there or something? I assume he was in that hotel, motel, Holiday Inn's luxury suite. Like, what was he really doing? Was it really jarring? Were you looking down from your 30th?
Very emotional.
30th level suite? Ordering room service? I mean, was it really that emotional looking out the window, then getting bused to the game, and then getting a police escort back, and then you get a chartered flight? Well, it was really emotional about it. But this is the point that I keep making. And I give the reporter credit, whoever that was, he just asked a question. And we know what side of the fence he's on, to be fair, to be very honest about it. But he said, hey, wait a minute. Let me just push back a little bit, and I'll give you a chance to rebut. They don't want that. And I guess now Bobby Burak is trying to get credentials. Bobby, you know I like you. You're never getting them. Trust me. Now, the bad news is you won't be able to get your questions off. The good news is you don't have to watch the NBA.
I'm not so sure, because I was shocked that this question slipped through the net or, got past the goalie or whatever. But maybe it got through and got by because they wanted to. Maybe the NBA, because Steve Kerr seemed prepared to me with the apology or what. If he were completely caught off guard, I don't think he would have gone to, I misspoke there. I was misinformation. I think he was prepared. Someone, hey, there's an Outkick's got a credential. They're probably going to ask you about this. And Steve had a prepared answer.
Wasn't he surprised a couple of years ago when someone asked him, well, why aren't you protesting this but not that? And he's like, oh, well, I remember that. But, Steve Kerr loves to talk about Second Amendment rights, except when it comes to the cities that he makes road trips in. These are the things that are maddening about guys like Steve Kerr.
I love the fact that this question got in, and it will probably make them a tiny bit more reluctant to make these statements because they're opening themselves up for questions like this, and I don't think he wants to have to run around and apologize for all the stupid things he says. Steve, final topic, but this is a topic I'm interested in. Kendrick Perkins, and I think you would be too. Kendrick Perkins has basically apologized for criticizing Joel Embiid. And then we'll play that, and then I want to connect it to, is it Austin Rivers, Doc Rivers' son?
Yes.
That basically has stepped away from podcasting because he's like, man, this whole thing's toxic, and you're forced to say negative things, and people get all sensitive about it. But I'm looking at Kendrick Perkins apologize, and I just go back to, again, these athletes think they want to be in the media, but they really don't. They don't want the blowback. They want to make sure they're invited to the cookout or to the strip club or whatever. They got to all be friends with these other athletes. And this is the breakdown in the media. And this is why all these apologies from Dan Orlovsky to Kendrick Perkins, why they're all the heat that's in the kitchen, they want no parts of. Let's play Kendrick Perkins.
I'd like to issue an apology.
Ooh, yay. Oh, I'm down for that.
Seriously, to Daryl Morey, Joel Embiid, because I didn't expect this. Like, if you'd asked me this 2 months ago, I thought Joel Embiid was on the verge of, retirement, seriously. And now all of a sudden, he's come back to looking like an all-NBA caliber player. And we know that he's going to get buckets far as what he do on the perimeter because he's one of the most skilled bigs to ever play the damn game of basketball. But it's the lift. He's dunking the ball now. We saw him catch an alley. Like, he's playing above the rim, and he's playing with force.
Look, obviously, it's kind of a lighthearted apology or whatever, but Kendrick Perkins was ripping him for good reason for 2 years, and there's no reason to apologize. If anything, Kendrick can say, hey, I'd like to take credit for Joel Embiid playing some inspired ball this year. It looks like my criticism worked.
Yeah, but lost. I mean, didn't he basically help win him the MVP over Jokic? I thought, to me, that was kind of like a retraction, which is fine. We've all been wrong, and I think it takes a big man to say, look, I was wrong, I flubbed, or to make a factual correction. I think we should always do that if we're wrong factually. Here's the thing that I want to tie this into. Inside the NBA, remember that show, Jason? Used to be pretty good. I don't know what happened to it. It used to be on. I don't know. Kind of flew over the Bermuda Triangle. Hasn't been seen from that often, right? The beauty of that show is, and maybe it's its ultimate downfall, it was honest and it was brutal. And Charles Barkley would say, I'm not apologizing for a damn thing. If I said it, I said it. If a guy proves me wrong, I'll go back and I'll be a big enough man to say that I was wrong. But I think that is the issue. Inside the NBA may have been simply too blunt and too honest for today's current NBA and the league. And maybe they are falling victim to this whole, well, I got to apologize because I need the access. I think that's really here the tie-in and the big story.
Steve, that's all I got. We'll let you go. Great job. Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. In 10 minutes, let's say 11:55 Central Time. That's 12 minutes. I'll be on the Harmony Channel with Shamika Michelle and Dre Baldwin. We'll talk about last night's Grammy Awards. Nicki Minaj is on a Twitter tirade right now after Trevor Noah tried to crack some jokes or dissed her at her expense. Nicki Minaj has snapped. And we'll also talk about Jemele Hill ripping Donald Trump for Don Lemon's arrest. We'll do that in 12 minutes on the Harmony Channel. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.